There have been threats from the Kremlin after Ukraine fired American long-range missiles into Russia for the first time.
One of the things I'm sure we'd like to avoid, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, or whether we believe that new emergent systems of politics will come about if only we allow ourselves to awaken and follow the divine guidance available to us all. One thing we can probably agree on, can we, is we don't want a nuclear war with Russia. So why is it that the United Kingdom appear to be sort of right up for a nuclear war with Russia, certainly are being sort of passive aggressive and sort of slightly stupid on the subject of like, well, this is entirely Putin's fault. If he doesn't want a nuclear war, it's down to him. Like you're talking about sort of some sort of like breakup, like you're talking about a quarrel in a playground instead of a nuclear winter. Also, Thomas Massey, who's generally, wouldn't you say, one of the most reliable people in political life, is calling for Biden's impeachment for using long-range missiles inside Russian territory, a needless provocation of Vladimir Putin at the moment. Hopefully, one might assume at least, Putin's already in communication with Trump and will hopefully pull back from the brink of apocalyptic strikes rather than have a nuclear war before there's an opportunity to at least experience what 2024 Trump might have been like. So let's have a look right now at whether or not we're going to be able to get to the inauguration without a nuclear war. Is Putin, let me know in the comments and chat, up for a nuclear conflict? It would seem to me that he's the very kind of person that would do that if provoked. So maybe we should just, keep provoking him and find out.
There have been threats from the Kremlin after Ukraine fired American long-range missiles into Russia for the first time. President Vladimir Putin has now revised a key military doctrine, lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons.
On the 1000th day of the conflict, a move that could change the course of the war. Ukraine launching 6 American-supplied ballistic rockets into Russia, reportedly hitting a military depot.
We will be taking this as a qualitatively new phase of the Western war against Russia.
Good news, everyone. It's a qualitatively new phase in the war against Russia that demonstrates empirically that it's not a war between just Russia and Ukraine, but Russia and NATO members. Even better still, let me tell you, you're paying for this. We're going to destroy your life, your family's life, and the world. Here's the bill.
And we'll react accordingly.
Hours earlier, Vladimir Putin signed a revised nuclear doctrine.
This new nuclear doctrine lowers that threshold considerably to a threat to the territorial integrity.
Russia now opening the door for a nuclear response if attacked.
Despite what Russia says, neither the United States nor NATO pose any threat to Russia.
As night fell, 1,000 candles were lit, signifying 1,000 days since the start of the war.
1,000 days, I think it's enough to understand that Putin doesn't want any peace.
Why don't we just light 1,000 candles and send 1,000 missiles into Russian territory?
It's not Band-Aid. It's not heal the world. This is an actual war. We don't need Instagram moments of lit candles and futile, ludicrous gestures. We need adult diplomacy and an end to this escalating war. So it's not all bad news. We've got a decrepit president on the brink of departure. It's making strikes into Russian territory that could very easily bring about the end of the world. That does seem negative. But we've also got 1775 coffee. So it's not, it's not all bad news, is it? Let's have a look at what Thomas Massey has to say on the subject. By authorising long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, Biden is committing an unconstitutional act of war. Remember, you've got a constitution that endangers the lives of all your citizens. These are the kind of things that just happen now. Donald Trump, he's a rapist. Okay, what about these unconstitutional acts of war? Don't worry about that. He's adorable. He's a lovely old guy. Didn't you see him just wandering off into the Amazon? Who couldn't love him? This is an impeachable offence, but the reality is he's an emasculated puppet of the deep state. That does appear to be the reality. Talking about emasculated puppets of the deep state, Britain has a Prime Minister called Keir Starmer, who on literally day one of being elected into office on a dubious landslide mandate due to the nature of our electoral system, made as his first act as Prime Minister a commitment to continue to use UK taxpayer money to perpetuate an unwinnable war against Russia, rather than use the UK's diplomatic influence to bring about a peaceful solution. Perhaps because when there was a peace deal on the table between Zelensky and Putin, it was Boris Johnson, presumably at the behest and suggestion of Joe Biden, that went to Kiev to break that deal down and ensure that it didn't take place. Here he is, reassuring a nervous population that there's no way there's going to be a nuclear war. We won't allow it. We're your leaders. We love the planet and the people above all else. We consider it our duty as servants of God to make sure that we come to some sort of peaceful diplomatic agreement with Putin, whatever our differences are. Even if we believe him to be a war criminal and a monster and the aggressor in this conflict, we can see that there can be no victory for Ukraine if there are nuclear strikes across Europe and America. So, of course, what we're going to do is whatever is necessary to bring about a peaceful solution.
Let's be honest, most K-Cup pods are serving you mouldy, pesticide-laden rubbish. Chains like Dunkin', they're stinking the place out with their stale coffee and expecting you to say cheers. 1775 Coffee makes sure you don't have to drink a chemical soup when you want a caffeine lift. 1775 Coffee steps in to slap the mediocrity right out of the competition. Their K-Cup pods are filled with single origin, high-altitude beans, hand-picked by people who know what flavour actually is. It's coffee that will slap your brain fast awake. Faster, in fact, than a government scandal. Who doesn't need an injection of this new caffeine inflection? Kamala Biden? Get this stuff down you. You've got a choice of medium roast, dark roast and mushroom blend. Yeah, actual mushrooms like lion's mane and reishi to boost your brain power as well as giving you an immediate lift. Because let's be honest, if your coffee isn't strong enough to overthrow a small government, what's the point? This coffee is for people who don't want a participation trophy. This is coffee for winners. Go to 1775coffee.com, grab your 24-pack and tell corporate coffee to take a hike. That's go to 1775coffee.com, grab your 24-pack and tell corporate coffee to take a hike. Caffeine that will help you overthrow the powerful.
Here is Keir Starmer saying, I'm being him now, I'm going to go to Moscow right now, and I'm going to resolve this. I was born for this moment. Let's bring about peace. Let's acknowledge that Russia are a mighty nation, always have been, and that they're not going to be kowtowed by threats of a bureaucratic entity like NATO that have spoken ill of them, that have tried to exploit them, that have reneged on deals. And there's a complex history between Ukraine and Russia, and a significant portion of the Russian population of Ukrainians that are ethnically Russian within their territory that want some kind of peaceful conclusion to this matter. Let's see if we can bring that about. That's why we got into politics, isn't it? It certainly wasn't to serve globalism and corporatism and to turn everything into a crime and to throw people into jail for social media posts while allowing the nation's fabric to be disrupted and besmirched by unchecked migration and not investigating correctly the murder of literal children. We're going to really turn this country around. We're going to be transparent with you, and we're going to bring about a solution. That is what Keir Starmer is about to say. I'm 100% confident in it.
Russia's also threatened nuclear escalation. Are you comfortable with that when people at home are watching this, worrying that you could put us at risk?
Well, firstly, my dad was a toolmaker. Does that help anyone?
Well, it's very important. It's very important that we're steadfast in our support for Ukraine. Russia is the aggressor,
Even
and
if
Russia
unleashes
It's not a fart. Who denied it, supplied it? Who smelt it, dealt it? I would say to Putin, you smelt this nuclear war, you dealt it, and, you'll smell that radiation as it drifts back across Europe after you've blown up London.
Russia has to be the one that makes the move to stop this war.
You have to. It's your turn. It's your turn to bring about peace. I won't bring about peace. My dad was a toolmaker.
It's within their gift, but we must support Ukraine. It's impacting not just Ukraine, it's impacting the rest of the world, including the UK.
Is your message to viewers back home that there will not be a nuclear war? Because that is what Russia is threatening.
My message is that we need to ensure that Ukraine is put in the best possible position.
Look at his eyes. Look at his eyes. He's a human being like you or I. The same as us. In a way, he's been placed on some preposterous peninsula of power, place, no person should stand alone, or maybe even stand at all, particularly not if they are a mere conduit for powers that are way beyond them, powers that should in fact be beyond any of us. From where will the principles be derived to prevent this situation escalating further?
This is 1,000 days of conflict, and there is a very high cost if Russian aggression is seen to pay off.
Yeah, I'd say that Armageddon is a pretty high cost. Starmageddon! You are a good leader. I get it now. I just wasn't clever enough to understand why Armageddon is a good thing. Well, thanks for explaining. I'll just go and lay down in a coffin and wait for death. Hopefully, what will be granted are a class of leaders that are able to handle this, while we ourselves navigate to new ways of governing communities, breaking down power wherever possible, imposing regulation and measures that are truly and meaningfully going to redress the terrible imbalance exposed during the pandemic era and easily registered, recognized, discerned and observed through the transfer of wealth that took place during that time. You could look at who benefited from the pandemic, make a list of those corporations and bureaucratic entities and even individuals and say, these are probably the people that benefit from crisis. If we're going to have government at all, let's make sure that we use the government to impede their interests rather than continue to facilitate and support those interests, whether they are military or pharmaceutical or big tech. Hopefully what we don't have is a situation where state power and corporate power have alloyed to the degree where ultimately we have the fascism that Benito Mussolini described, only stripped of its feathery caps and its amusing moustaches and replaced instead with a dead bureaucratic grin. But hey, that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and chat? If we come together with powerful information derived from within you, we can oppose this, we can be victorious, we can overcome. I believe it very deeply.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.